take people's feelings in consideration, right? But you got to be able to understand what you're feeling and be able to deal with how you feel before you can really deal with how somebody else feels. It's just like when you're on that plane and a flight attendant tell you if anything happens, your oxygen mask there fall. First thing you need to do is put it on your face first before you can help somebody else. Because if you try to help somebody else first, you may end up harming yourself as well. And both of y'all be harmed, right? Hey, welcome. I'm your host, Johnny, from No Cap Just Hats, where I talk about trending topics and things in the culture that's important to me. I want to talk about something that everyone's go through, and that's losing someone. When it comes to losing a loved one, any death, no matter the age, is just too soon. I mean, that person can be 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. It just feels like you never really had enough time with the person. It's like you guys should have had so much more time together before that person was gone, right? Because what it is that you want that person back so much, right? And so what you tend to do is you tend to think about the good experiences that you guys had, all the good memories when you all were just being yourselves. And it can be in something simple as far as you both just out eating lunch, right? Spending time with one another. And you start to think of those memories when somebody you love has gone away, right? When it comes to that, I can really speak from personal experience. With deaths I had in the family, I had people that died that I truly loved that was in their 30s when they passed away. People that were in their 50s, 70s, 80s, and so forth, right? But after they pass away, you don't just think about the good memories that you had, right? You really start to thinking about all the times that were bad too, right? You start to playing it over and over in your head of, man, if I would have just squashed that beef that we had about some nonsense, right? Or if I would just gave him or her another chance, because I was pissed off about whatever the situation was, and then I decided that I wasn't going to even fool with them no more like that, right? And then now when you start to think back on it, to be honest, you really can't even remember what the fight was about. So you're thinking about the good memories, thinking about the bad time. It could have been the last time y'all spoken before that person left this place, right? Where you got mad at him or her, and it was probably for something you can't even remember the reason why. And to be honest with you, man, I've heard so many people talk about that same scenario, right? Where someone they love has passed away, and before the person passed away, they end up getting into some type of argument, altercation, or something, right? But they can't even remember, right, why they were fighting for. And then you're sitting there realizing that that particular time wasn't even worth the anger, right? Because you can't even remember what it was, so you already know. It's like, man, that was really some nonsense that I could have just got over. And you start to wonder, well, did that affect anything, or how they felt about me, or before they left this earth, and all this kind of stuff. It really starts to lead into a lot of stuff like that too, right? Because then that's when it started to really get to the point, right? Where you like, is it selfish of me to rather have that person here on earth than in paradise, right? Like, even though you already know that, okay, down here on earth, him or her, they were struggling with something internally, right? It could have been mental stress. It was the bills, couldn't, having problems paying the bills, working 2 or 3 jobs, just trying to make ends meet. Or it could have been a situation where that particular loved one had some type of illness. So, they were having health problems that kept on occurring. And even though you know that they were going through, even though you realize that the pain that they were going through, they really don't change the fact that you love that person so much that you still don't want to let them go. You know what I mean? Now, you do have those people that can let somebody go, but everybody can't do that, though, right? Because you got some people that have loved ones that they know, oh man, they were going through something like that. Could have been cancer, it could have been any type of disease, and they sit there and watch it, right? Watch the way it changed their lives, watch the way that they went from their normal selves to a person they didn't even recognize, right? It's just trying to survive and make it, really, for you. They're in pain, they're really trying to make it for you. I even heard people say, when they had a family member, right, that was going through it bad, and each and every day they were still trying to make it. And then finally, that family member was like, it's okay. It's okay for you to go now. And that person died within 12 to 24 hours of them saying that, right? So I've heard of that before. Heard those type of cases before, right? But then when you think about paradise and what we believe, or I say what I believe paradise is to be, I think of it as being like a place where there's no pain, no bills, no suffering of any kind. A place where that family member that you really love, care for, adore, is like finally free, right? And what you're hoping for is that ideal of what you think paradise is that same place where they made it to, right? You're hoping for that after that person has left this world, that they're in your version of what paradise is. Where they're looking down on you, watching over you, and coming down every so often, walking you by side when you're walking down the street, thinking of them. That spirit is there with you, comforting you, right? And that's usually what, you know what I mean? Like, from a lot of people I've spoken to, that's what we think of paradise, right? That's what we hope paradise is. Because at the end of the day, we all know that we have to go one day, right? Rather that's in an early age, an age where you consider yourself, mid-age, and then older, right? Like, we all know it's a time where we have to go one day. Then you also recognize, okay, so I know I gotta go one day. Then you start thinking, okay, so as if we had a choice, right, to pick, right, of how we go. So then you start playing all these scenarios in your head, like, oh well, I'd rather go in my sleep, right, versus going in some type of accident or going from some type of disease, which we all know really that we can't pick the way we go or whatever, right? But those type of scenarios, right, that start to go through your head once you start to lose the people that you love, right, from either early age, older age, through natural causes, accidental deaths, through suffering, stuff like that. That's when you start to think about all that type of stuff, right? When it comes to death. And once you lose that person that you love and that you really, miss and adore in life, right? Because, like I said before, I know how that feels to lose people that you love in life. Wondering, like, why them? Why it had to be them and stuff like that. But also at the same time, kind of understanding that we don't control nothing, and it's already predestined, right? Before you leave, right? It's already predestined when you're supposed to, leave this place. Now, I do believe that we have certain choices into, like, how that path go, right? As far as, let's say, you're living your life trying to be as upright as possible. Then you got this other path where you might not be living your life as upright as you could be. So on this path where you're living your life upright, I mean, you're doing the things that you're supposed to be doing, right? As far as trying, staying out the way. Not getting into any type of situations with anything, with anyone that can cause harm on you or your family, and stuff like that. And then you have this other path, right, where you may not be really even caring about that, right? So you in with the in crowd. You're kind of doing what others are doing, even though you know it may not be right. But that's pretty much your environment or whatever, right? So I do think that also plays a part in, like I said, like, I guess you'll say, like, your death day, even though I know that's not always the case in every situation, because I'm not saying you could be doing something wrong and leave this earth, and sometimes you can be doing all type of bad stuff and still won't leave this earth. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying that just 100% know how it is or whatever, but I'm just saying that in certain situations, I do believe that the choices you make kind of predetermines how you'll leave this earth versus the way it was your roadmap was kind of like already predetermined. And then because then pretty good. Because I'm not gonna say this for everybody, but I do think a large number of people have a fear of dying, right? And because I heard people say that they're not afraid of death. I heard some people say they are afraid of death. But I kind of think it kind of goes to the circumstances of the death too, right? What death would be, right? Because I think the older you get, I think the less afraid of death it is, right, for that person. Of course, as a kid in adolescence, thinking of death, you're terrified. You're terrified, right? Because I went through that stage. I remember learning about my first experience of somebody dying and then being explained that this was natural. This was something that, had to take place, and that everybody would die one day. So I remember that feeling of fearfulness, hearing it, knowing that this will be, something that's uncontrollable. And also that feeling of not quite understanding what it was at the time. But then as I got older, and I'm continually getting older, you start to fear it less, because I think it's a more of an understanding to what it is too, right? So then you realize that the older someone gets, because I remember when I was younger, I used to always say, oh man, I want to live to like 120 or something like that, right? But then as you get older, and then you see the people that are 120 that can't really take care of themselves, right? Can't drive, can't go to the restaurant for themselves, suffering pain from all just age and stuff like that. And then you start to think about it. So, oh, well, maybe I don't want to go at 120. You're like, man, I definitely want to go before I reach the age of 120, right? So as you get older, man, you start understanding it a little bit more. But yeah, the fear is still there. Now I spoke with some people that, like I said, in their 70s, 80s, they have like no fear of it. And like I said, maybe they're just becoming more wiser, getting to the point in your life where your body starts to break down. So I don't know if it's like a feeling of they can feel it coming, or they just feel like it's time. They're just, you know what I mean, just tired. And when you think of that word tired, it's just not for the physical, right? Think of tired, it can be mentally. And you have so many people in this life, man, that are just tired, right? And that has no age associated with it at all. They're just tired. Tired of the day-to-day struggles that comes with living in a world where everything isn't always fair. People don't always want to help others. And things happen that we just don't understand. Especially like when just thinking about, let's say you're a parent, right? And as a parent, well, for me, the last thing I want to see is, I wouldn't want my kids to leave this earth before me, right? So I can imagine a parent that's been raising their kid right. Kid hasn't gotten into any type of trouble, anything like that. And then somehow, some way, that kid gets in some type of accident, right? Whether it be their fault or not. But it ends their life. And as a parent, that's a fear, right? I mean, I know it's a fear of mine. And that will be one of them things that you will just get so tired of, right? Not like I said, once again, not physically, but emotionally, mentally. You'll be tired of something like that. Because you want to believe that all good things come to people that do right, and you want to think that the flip side of the coin would be all bad things will come to people that do bad stuff, right? But when that's in reverse, and you see that good stuff just doesn't happen to good people, it can happen to bad people. And bad stuff just don't happen to bad people. It can happen to good people. And I think that's that part of that growth, right? As you get older, and as you realizing that you having this pain in your body, that pain in your body, you've reached the age of 70, 80 years old. So during this time, you've witnessed friends dying. You've witnessed loved ones dying. You'll probably even witness children of yours dying, grandchildren of yours dying, right? Probably even great grandchildren of yours dying at this point. So you're 70, 80, 90 years old. You done reached this age, which is a blessed age to have reached, right? But at the same time, you're tired, right? You're tired of so much of the bad things that life have shown you or you have encountered. So I can imagine at that age in your life, you probably aren't afraid of death at this point because you've probably been heartbroken so many times in your life that you probably wanted to die yourself, right? You know what I mean? So, like I said, everybody has their own experiences. And no one can tell somebody how they should feel or what they should how should they react to a situation when it comes to death. But for me, each time I've lost someone that I love, right, and cared for me, it's always was a hard thing to do. Like I said, for me, like I've gone to the funerals, and I know some people can't even walk through the door of being at a funeral, right? But for myself, I try to be there to show support. But if I'm being honest, I never want to go to those things, right? Like, I don't know anybody that really just wants to go to a funeral, right? We go because our family is expecting us to be there. But if it wasn't for the expectation, right, of family wanting you to be there and looking at you some type of way, I know for me that I probably wouldn't go at all, right? And I know it's a terrible thing to say, but you know that if a family member dies, if you're not there, everybody know you probably gonna get talked about by your family, right? I mean, they're gonna talk about you, and don't let it be somebody like super duper close to you. Or that person probably never cared for them in the first place. When the reality of it is that that person really just couldn't handle it, right? Like, you were strong. That person that went to the funeral was actually strong enough to get through those doors, right? But then we may judge this other person because they didn't come to the funeral. And that's because we expect people to feel the way that we feel, but in reality, this really just isn't true. You know what I mean? For a lot of us, man, it's so many things that we deal with as people, but we suck it up thinking of the next person's feelings, right? And to be honest with you, that can cause all type of issues. When you're really pacifying somebody else's feeling and neglecting your own. Oh man, that's some real stuff right there, real talk. because that's really a real issue. A lot of people are pacifying others' emotional feelings to make them feel better, while at the same time suffering. I mean, just suffering on the inside. When you're the person that really needs the help. And there's really so many people that's like that, man. And I'm gonna give y'all a hat, because it's something that I've learned, right? That take people's feelings in consideration, right? But you got to be able to understand what you're feeling and be able to deal with how you feel before you can really deal with how somebody else feels. It's just like when you're on that plane and the flight attendants tell you, if anything happens, your oxygen mask, they fall. First thing you do is put it on your face first before you can help somebody else. Because if you try to help somebody else first, you may end up harming yourself as well. And both of y'all be harmed, right? And there's so many people in life, man, that oxygen mask is falling down. And instead of them putting it on their face first, right? Instead of them paying their bills first, instead of them getting the mental help that they need first, they're focused on somebody that they're probably the next day will forget about. They're focused on somebody else that really already made in their mind that there's no change in the situation, ain't no change in them, and you're putting yourself at risk because you're so focused on this other person that you neglect yourself, and now you're dying inside while you're trying to help somebody else, and now you're in that funeral home from an early death because you neglected all the telltale signs or all the symptoms, right, that you were incurring on yourself. And instead of you going to get that healed from that, right, get that fixed, you decided to ignore those issues within yourself and go and try to pacify somebody else, right? So that's really that hat right there, man. You gotta focus on you, man. When it comes down to the things, you gotta understand yourself before you can really understand anybody else, right? And that's just, like I said, even when this seems like it's at its hardest, right? Things are at its hardest, man. You gotta understand when to keep pushing forward and keep growing. Cause ain't nobody gonna do it but you, right? But yeah, man. Hey, look. Hey, thank everybody for tuning in. Hey, subscribe. Like, share. There's no caps, just hats. Peace out.